Hey guys, Auspicious Aussie here, and welcome to my New Japan Cup 2020 predictions. Now, of course, we have been in a pandemic, and of course, New Japan decided to essentially shut their doors during this time, whereas other North American companies decided to run shows without an audience. Now, obviously, I'm pretty excited to see New Japan back. Obviously, they do have some of the best wrestling in the world, and I think a tournament like this is kind of almost the perfect culmination or the perfect way to bring wrestling back to Japan, really, back into the mainstream for the Japanese people. Obviously, I'm sure it's pretty well known that the first, I think every show up until the Osaka-jo Hall event, which will be the New Japan Cup final, will have no audience. I'm not 100% sure about the semifinals, but I'm assuming they will probably be empty arenas with no fans as well. Anyway, in this video, I'm going to essentially go over every match briefly in this first round and just give you essentially my predictions on what I think is probably going to happen and who I think will probably sort of go through their first round matches. I'm not really going to do too many predictions going forward because obviously, you know, there's not really any point in me doing that because apart from the first round, things get much more difficult, and obviously there are underlying storylines going at the moment, but I don't think too many of them are probably going to be continued. It's almost like starting fresh for New Japan. Anyway, we're going to start off with the left side here, first of all. And of course, we got Togi Makabe and Yota Tsuji. Now, it's worth noting there are, I think, 3 young lions in this match. Yota Tsuji is the first one. We then have Yuya Yamura. And then finally, I think Gabriel Kidd is on the... they're all on the left side, which is interesting. I do feel like the right side of the bracket is very, very stacked. Obviously, with the young lions being on that left-hand side. But I would say a good 2/3 of sort of the upper card is definitely on that right side. Obviously, on the left side, you do have a few big stars as well. But I feel like there's quite a few easy first-round matches on that left-hand side. And it does get more difficult looking over to the right-hand side. So in that first match, I think it's going to be pretty obvious. They're not going to have a young lion go over someone like Makabe. So Togi Makabe will probably be beating Tsuji. And when I say probably, I essentially mean he will be beating him and going through to that second round, which will, depending on the results of the next match, will lead to a very, very interesting second round matchup. So the next match in the bracket, we have Tomohiro Ishii, and he is taking on El Desperado, which I feel like is a pretty good match, you know. Obviously, you know, there's going to be a standout. I don't think Desperado will pull off an upset, but it is, of course, Chaos versus Suzuki-gun. So, you know, there's a lot of interesting things that have happened in the past. Obviously, this one's not going to probably relate to any type of storyline going forward. Obviously, Ishii and Suzuki, they've had some interesting matches over the last couple of years. But obviously, Ishii will probably be winning this one, going through, and of course, will be taking on Makabe in that sort of second round on the 24th. The next match down below, we have Toreano taking on Giotto. This one, again, I think Yano is probably going to pick up the victory. It kind of makes sense for him to get into that second round. And obviously, he's going to, you know what he's going to do. He's going to mess with Giotto, and he's going to essentially make the match a bit of a comedy match. And I'm assuming Giotto will get pretty frustrated and be pretty angry, especially by the end of it. But yeah, definitely Toreano would be my guess to go through in that one. The next match is interesting because we also have junior heavyweights being involved in the New Japan Cup for this year. And kind of, in my opinion, my dark horse would be one of these next guys, and that is Hiromu Takahashi. Now, of course, Hiromu is in a stable, is in LIJ with the current world and intercontinental champion, the heavyweight champion, and the intercontinental champion being Naito. And there has been some hints prior to, the pandemic that Naito and Takahashi were probably going to go at it at some stage. And I feel like him winning the New Japan Cup with junior heavyweights being included and the sort of circumstances, there's kind of a chance that he could do it. Now, it would be a tough ask, and it would be a pretty massive push, because along the way, if he was to win it, he would have to eliminate some pretty strong people. But in this first round, he's taken on Tomoki Honma, who, he's pretty old now. He's kind of getting past it a little bit. So I feel like he might actually be willing to put over Hiromu and allow that possible scenario to play out. That would be pretty cool. And as you can see, that would also lead to Hiromu and Toreano based on my predictions in that second round. Moving a little bit lower, we've got a very, very interesting matchup. We have Kazuchika Okada taking on Gato. And obviously, if you've watched any New Japan in probably the last year and a half, you will understand why this is an interesting matchup. The fact that Gato turned his back on Okada and essentially put himself, or aligned himself with Jay White, makes this match super interesting, and you're going to have to assume that Okada is going to want to absolutely destroy Gato in this match. Obviously, Gato's going to try and cheat, try and do whatever he can to try and pull off a victory, but obviously it's Okada. There's kind of no way that he's going to lose, and I sort of expect him to be in the final from this left-hand side, unless Hiromu does pull off an upset in a semi-final, because they are actually on opposite sides of the bracket that could lead them into facing each other in the semi-final. So that would be a pretty good semi-final. Very interesting. Obviously, the quarterfinal, which we'll get into in the next match, would also be fairly... Well, actually, would actually be the second round match, I just realized. So the next match is Yuji Nagata and Minoru Suzuki. This one also, I mean, like I said, this left-hand side is sort of straightforward, you would assume. And obviously, Suzuki going over Nagata would be the most logical option that you would have to sort of... If you were predicting and you saw this on paper like I am now, there's no real way that you could make Suzuki lose this match. And, for that reason, we're obviously going to go with Suzuki. So that'll actually lead to Okada and Suzuki versing each other once again, this time in the second round of the New Japan Cup. So that'll be a very interesting matchup. Now, if we go a little bit further down, I feel like it does get a little bit weaker here. We have one of the other three young lions. We have Yuya Uemura, and he is taking on Yoshinobu Kanemaru. This one, I don't want to... I'm going to go with an upset here. I think Kanemaru... I think he's going to win, but I would like to predict an upset and a young lion victory. I know it's kind of asking a lot, and it is kind of against Japanese tradition for a young lion to get a victory over an established star. But I think Uemura he's definitely got the look. He almost looks like he's going to be a star in the future. He performs pretty well, as most of the young lions do. They're all fairly well trained in the dojo, so he looks like he could be a star. And I want to give him this victory, and hopefully, he'll take on the winner of the next match, which will be between Gabriel Kidd and Taiji Ishimori. Now, this one, again, I feel like it'll be a really good match. I really do like Gabriel Kidd, But obviously Ishimori, he's obviously a very, very talented junior heavyweight. And for that reason alone, I feel like he will get the victory. He's very, very established as well. And of course, Gabriel Kidd is kind of... He plays the underdog so well, Gabriel Kidd. And I've been super impressed, throughout his career when he was with like WCPW prior to New Japan and stuff like that. He gets the crap beaten out of him, but he still keeps coming back. And I feel like that's probably what's going to occur in this match. Obviously, I think Ishimori will make him look pretty good as well when he does get some offense in. But obviously, ultimately, Ishimori will go through. And hopefully, either way, even if Kanemaru does win, it's essentially going to be two junior heavyweights going at it. And once again, you would probably expect Ishimori to get into that quarterfinal, where he will probably take on Okada. And I feel like that could be a really, really good matchup for a quarterfinal. Anyway, that is the left side of the bracket done there. Let's move over to the right side, which is the side that I do think is quite a bit stronger. As you can see, the first guy right at the top, we have Hiroshi Tanahashi. And of course, he's taken on Taiji. Now, I think they've versed each other once before. And I'm pretty sure Tanahashi got the victory there. Seeing as we're coming off the pandemic, or it's still around, but everything is starting to reopen, I would expect Tanahashi to... He has to win. I think he almost has to make at least the semi-final for people to be really interested in the actual tournament itself. And I think that's what you would kind of want if you're a New Japan booker or executive. You want the ace to be doing well, and especially, he did the promotion essentially from the special announcement when they announced the New Japan Cup and the shows were starting to come back. So he's definitely going to make the semi-final at least. Possibly could make the final. There are other standouts here, but he could easily make the final, if not win the whole thing, along with maybe Okada. So, yeah, Tanahashi going through. Now, the next match, this is a really interesting one for me. I'm really looking forward to this. We've got Kota Ibushi taking on Zack Sabre Jr., which, realistically could easily be a semi-final match. This one's hard to predict, because when I was first looking at it, obviously, Kota Ibushi would be the standout. No disrespect to Sabre Jr., but I feel like Ibushi is probably, if not one of the best in the world at the moment. Well, he was prior to the ceasement of shows for New Japan. But Zack Sabre Jr. has been pushed pretty hard by New Japan as well, so this is going to be a cracking match. A really, really solid match. Could easily be... I don't want to say could be a 5-star match, but, it really could. On paper, you would think that, given the time, these guys might be able to pull off something special. Now, if I have to pick a winner, I know I'm kind of delaying. I feel like Zack Sabre Jr. might find a way to eliminate Kota Ibushi, and I feel like that'd be a really good way to sort of maintain his heel streak that he's on at the moment, and to give him some real heat once the fans do come back. And they could actually go into a storyline together. That'd be a pretty interesting way to actually continue. Maybe have Zack sort of, cheat, or use some sort of distraction to actually get a victory and cost Ibushi the match. That'd be interesting. And of course, he could just have someone from Suzuki Gun come out and to do his bidding for him. Either way, the next match... so that would actually lead to a Zack Sabre Jr. Tanahashi second round match. Obviously, if I had to give a prediction for that one, Tanahashi would probably go through. But the next first round match, we got Ryusuke Taguchi and Sanada. This one seems pretty straightforward. Taguchi's good. A veteran of the junior scene for sure. But obviously Sanada, he made the final last year, if I'm remembering correctly. He might have won it. I can't remember 100%. just going off the top of my brain here. But he's super talented, and I could easily see him making the semi-final as well. Even though this side is not roughly, it is pretty packed. Also, with these first round matches on this side, it does equate to a very strong second round matchup with LIJ taking on LIJ, because the next match is going to be Sho taking on Shingo Takagi. And yeah, I mean, Shingo is probably going to win this match. Obviously, he was junior heavyweight. I'm assuming he's still going to be heavyweight now, because he did essentially go up from what I remember. And of course, he was in the G1. So I'm assuming he's still going to be up that level, which is where he kind of belongs. He's definitely outgrown the junior division. And obviously, Sho, still a part of the junior division. You would kind of expect Shingo to get the victory there. And then, like I said, we'll have Sanada taking on Shingo, both members of LIJ, going at it for a spot in the quarterfinals. Should be a very solid match as well. And like I said, there's going to be some good matches on this right-hand side. All right. So the next one is a little bit harder to predict as well. We got Hiroyoshi Tenzan, and we got Yoshihashi. Now, I think, again, I wasn't watching much New Japan, and what I mean by that is I was essentially just watching the pay-per-views, like the big events, and not really watching the tour shows, like the Road to tour shows, which is obviously, it's not great, but, you know, with all the other wrestling I watch AEW as well. Obviously, I've got a job, I have to work, and then obviously I produce TEW content as well. Yeah, I feel like they were pushing Yoshihashi a little bit after he came back from his injury over the last year. So I don't see why they would give a victory to Tenzan. So in my opinion, I think Yoshihashi will probably win this one and go through. So the next match is going to be Yo, of course, Sho and Yo, both on the right-hand side. And he's going to be taking on Bushi, again of LIJ. Now this one, I feel like, could also go either way. Similar to the Kota Ibushi Zack Sabre Jr. match. In theory, I would probably put Bushi a little bit ahead of Yo. But then I would think that maybe too many members of LIJ are going through. So with that said, I think Yo might pull off the upset and find himself into that sort of second round, knocking Bushi out. Like I said, they don't need all of their members going through. And as a result, I think Bushi's probably going to be the one to miss out. And like I said, over here, I really hope Hiromi Takahashi does get through. He is the only member of LIJ on that opposite side, on that left-hand side. So that's pretty interesting. Anyway, the next match, also featuring a member of LIJ. We have Satoshi Kojima taking on Evil. This one, again, I don't want to say it seems straightforward, but it kind of does. Obviously, Kojima, he's pretty old now. I think he's in his 40s, if I'm not mistaken. And then we, of course, have Evil, who is very early into his 30s. And, of course, he's been a bit of a rising star over the last 2 years, I would say. So, once again, I think Evil will probably do enough to get through. And, again, it does kind of, you know, it sets up a possible meeting with maybe one of his other stablemates in Shingo or Sanada over on this other hand side, even though I think it will probably be Tanahashi in the semi-final. And then finally, the last match of the first round is going to be Hiroki Goto taking on Yujiro Takahashi. Yeah, it's interesting that I feel like he is the only member of Ishimori. Never mind. And of course, I guess Jado probably counts as well. I don't know about Gato. Anyway, yeah, ignore what I just said. But we have Goto taking on Yujiro. Now, this one seems pretty straightforward as well. Obviously, Yujiro, kind of just like a mid-carder, doesn't really do too much, and he's a good performer, he's pretty good in the ring, but obviously Hiroki Goto is kind of a star, especially with the never openweight title, and all the stuff that he's done with that recently over the last 6 months to a year as well. I think he'll easily get past Yujiro in this first round, which will hopefully set up a nice match between Goto and Evil in that second round, which could be a very, very good matchup. And I would like to watch that one, to be honest. So, yeah, I mean, those are basically my predictions, at least for the first round, and I guess a bit of the second round. And then, of course, we do have... so my dark horse, obviously, Hiromi Takahashi. My favorite for the whole competition is probably Tanahashi. I feel like Tanahashi taking on Naito would be a pretty good match for the first, proper big event, where the titles are going to be on the line. And then I guess if I had to do... I guess he's on the right-hand side. Let's do the left-hand side. And I guess we'll go predictable with Kazuchika Okada. I feel like they're probably going to play it pretty safe, even though I kind of don't want them to, if that makes sense. I feel like the Hiromu Takahashi Tetsuya Naito storyline could definitely be elevated, and I think the fans love Hiromu, so it's kind of a no-brainer. If you wanted to pull a bit of a swerve and make things interesting, and of course, give Hiromu, a bit of a decent push, because he's obviously, to get to that final, he's probably going to have to beat Okada if he is getting that push, and a victory over Okada would definitely elevate his career above where it is currently. And honestly, I don't think it would be such a bad loss for Okada. I don't think it would be such a bad loss, especially just coming after, a decent layoff of time. Now, of course, the other side, I mean, as far as this sort of bottom half on the right-hand side goes, I feel like it's either going to be Evil or Goto that makes it into the semi-final to potentially take on Tanahashi. So that'd be pretty interesting. I mean, Goto versus Tanahashi, on paper, that sounds like a really good match as well. So there are some really, really good matchups. It's also good to see the three young lions in there. I'm really happy to see Gabriel Kidd. I was just kind of a fan of him in WCPW, and to see him go through the New Japan Dojo, being a young lion, and of course now getting a pretty good opportunity in the New Japan Cup as well. It's kind of nice to see full circle for a young English lad as well. So yeah, they're my predictions, what I think might happen and what I kind of want to happen as well. So hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Let me know down in the comments below who is your dark horse and who you think is probably going to win the competition if you had to go with a favourite as well. So yeah, make sure you give the video a like, guys, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I will be also uploading a bit of a mini-series, a fantasy booking mini-series with TEW 2020, and we're actually going to book the New Japan Cup 2020 exactly the way that I would like to have it. Now, it might not be exactly the same as these predictions here, but it could be. So, yeah, make sure you check that out. I will put it at the end of this video, so if you wait to like the last 20 seconds, it will be the video that pops up on the screen, so you can easily just click on to that, and it will take you to the first sort of episode of that New Japan Cup mini-series that we're going to be fantasy booking. So yeah, with that said, guys, as always, take it easy, and goodbye.